Hey guys, how are you doing today? I am going to go over Philogix PBR Painter Pro ID maps. We're going to unwrap our Suzanne. So you could just drop in a Suzanne and I'll be nice and start over and Shift A, monkey, edit, hit U, select Smart UV project and hit OK. And if you don't have this set up, you just kind of right click, hovering here, do a vertical split, and it's always cool. No one ever showed me you could literally split this anywhere and it just kind of moves wherever you move the mouse, the split goes there. So if I wanted to drop this here and turn this one into a 3D viewport and have this one kind of set to a material preview, no one ever showed me you could do that. And then you could set this one to another 3D viewport. And this may take up a little memory. You don't want to be doing this with a big scene or anything. But then you can go to a rendered option. Okay. And I would use the general HDR lighting for these small windows just to keep everything working smoothly. All right. So the Suzanne. What we got to do is go in and I will select one eyeball, okay? And so if you just left click and drag the mouse here, what you can do is you can just select that one area. I'm going to keep it exceptionally low poly. And from here, you'll need to have another tool, which is Text Tools, T-E-X Tools. And once you've got Text Tools downloaded and installed, which I will provide a link, and it's a super simple setup, just like anything else. Preferences, add-ons, come over here, type in TX, just so you can see it. But once you click install, you'll see Text Tools for UV ID mapping. Then you click install, probably just go to your downloads, find it, make sure it's a zip file. It should be, and it's absolutely free, which is absolutely wonderful. Because free helps you move along a little bit faster. And then when you actually start making some money out of 3D, then you don't care. You can buy an add-on. Okay, so I've selected just the one eye here. And I want to drop out color ID. And I will just do this consecutively. Just go ahead and add. Because this is the assigned color, or add it. And of course, you can pull up the color wheel. You could change this to any color you want. You definitely want it to be some very pronounced color that is identifiable and very different from the secondary color. So I selected the eye, but it assigned red to everything. So that's fine, and that's kind of how it works. Everything has to have one ID on it. There's going to be faces that everything has an ID color. If you click assign again on the next color, you'll see I've got the blue here. And it looks like I've got a little bleed over. And then I can just select this one and reassign that red, and it's good. So now I want to select the other eyeball, make it green. Oh goodness, I've done it again. Okay, so trying to get this one to stay to red. All right, if you don't know edge selecting, what you can do, well, you don't have to do edge, you can do faces. You can just select right here between two faces, hold down Shift and Alt, and you will select all these faces. And there is a little bleed through, like I've got that there from the model. It's just bleeding through, it's fine. And I'll select the other eye ring. Now I'm going to click yellow. Pretty cool. Now I've got some separate ID for the eyes and the, oh, I don't know, I guess you could set them pupils and all these other things. I don't know the biological names for the inner parts of the eye as much. So what we'll do now is we'll go in and select this little like goatee area. And by doing, the easy way to do that is just grab the mouth and then hit Control plus on the number pad. And you can grab the goatee area and then just deselect the two inner parts. If you want to get fancy, you can deselect a few more. I think that looks pretty good. And I will assign blue or light blue, whatever you want to call it. And I had the eyes selected for some reason. Okay, so let me deselect those eyes and do that again. That's the good thing about Blender, though. You can very, very quickly fix everything. All right, good. So we've got an ID map set up on the eyes, no pun intended. Now, if you come over to the layout for your textures, your material properties, you'll see everything has been assigned. And you can go through, and I could name this left eye. Just hit enter. And then I could double click on the red and put main body. And you're going to need this named, otherwise it could get convoluted if you're doing a bigger model, right? So then green, be right eye. Try to blow through this as quick as possible. Light blue would be the goatee. And then yellow will be back of eyes. That's my biological designation for that part of it. The whites of your eyes. That's probably, just call them the whites of your eyes. All right, so we've got this ID map set up. Now all we gotta do is come down and convert it from materials, which is what this is. And we don't want 5 different materials, so we are going to convert these to vertex colors. Boom, done. That's all you have to do. Now you're in vertex mode, so you just hit Control Tab, go back to object mode. Now I can kind of get rid of this screen. And what I'll do, just to make this thing look a little bit better, is I'll shade it smooth. Yeah, I don't think I made it look better, but we'll sub it, put a subdivision surface on it, give it 2, apply it, be done with it. Looks a lot better. It fixed all the bleed overs. Now, if you press N on the end panel and you have Philogix PBR Painter Pro already installed, you will see it says, please save this file. That's because the container system that is in Blender does not hold the bake information. It needs to bake all of these different ID maps, and it needs to bake textures and everything else, right? So it's going to bake all that to a file. So if we hit Control S and pull this up as a save, I've already got one in here that is test. So I can just blow that one back out and save it. And if you roll your mouse up here, boom, everything is activated. Now, I didn't transfer the names. That's okay. So we'll rename it here, and I'll try to fast forward this part. All right, very good. So now I will go to the main body and I'll click New Pick Shader, Bake. I think 124 is good enough. I'll do 4 for the quality. I don't want to put the highest quality texture on this for practice. I'll go ahead and click the normals, edge mark, ambient, everything. Hit Bake. Jump over to Material Preview, you can see it baking live. So Philogix PBR Painter Pro has a live bake. That's actually kind of exciting. That's almost as fun as the live UV unwrap, which is another tutorial. Be a very short one, but it's another tutorial. All right, so that's all baked, and it looks like I need to turn off the scene lights and scene world so we can just kind of play around with this thing in 100% lighting. I want to collapse the bake, pull down paint layer, add a basic smart material or regular base layer. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I like the rusty stuff, so I'm going to select the rust. Now I'll make it a little bit more metallic, a little bit more shiny, maybe a little sticky looking. And then we can play around with the value and bring that up so it is noticeable. Then I will switch by dropping down the UVs from UV to box. And now I've got that blend, and it did kind of clean up that little seam that I had right there, but if you look really, really close, there's a little bit of seam action going on. So if I hit blend, completely gone. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see how wonderful this is. Clear seams, don't match, blend. And you can do it just ever so slightly. You don't have to do it too much, and I don't want to lose, like if I continuously blend it, I almost overblend. So like a 0.5 or so is usually pretty good, but it's going to be up to the model and whatever else you did. Now this literally looks flawless, and that is what we're after. Okay, so that's it for that material. I'm going to go to the left eye, add a new pick shader. I can bake the normals probably for that in the curvature. I don't think I have to bake anything else for it, but I'll just bake it all. And you can see all the ID colors will pop up again, but don't worry, you didn't lose any texture. That was quick. I like that. So I don't have to pause the video. This is good. So I'll go ahead and add a new one to this. This is set to UV. So let's see. I'll grab maybe a different rust for that one, just to kind of match it up. Add a little bumpy to it. That actually looks kind of good. Let's go to box and see how that looks. Okay, doesn't totally match up. And I think that looks a little bit better. Now I go to the other eyeball, which is right eye. I named that one green. Well, I labeled it green. And I'll bake that one real quick. Everything looks good. All right, so that's good. And now I'll add something a little nicer to this one. And I think I'll add a iron brushed, and I'll do something cool with this one to kind of blend it in. I'll definitely go to box on that because it looks like trash. And still looks a little funky, right? There. Yeah, I'm gonna end up having to blend that in a little bit. Actually, I guess that's the way it's supposed to look. It looks brushed. So I'm going to choose something else. How about the iron raw? It'd make a little bit more sense because we're going to put a rust layer on the iron raw. There we go. That's what I was after right there. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control S and save the work. Don't let your work go to waste. Now, while I'm on the base layer channel, I'll add a custom layer. And from the custom layer, I can now add anything I want. Now let's see what we have available. If we click down, Smart Surface, Dust From, Falling Dust. We'll try the Dust From, and then we could maybe blend a dust layer on the top, on the base as well. And we'll see how this ends up looking. Alright, it showed up black, which happens sometimes when something isn't assigned properly. Let's see if we can bring that back. Alright, so this material needs a little adjustment. There we go. So we got a little value. Then we can mess around with the AO and the value. It looks like the AO is not going to do much until we pull the detail up. Alright. There we go. See, that was not what I wanted at first. Now it is. I wanted the dust kind of falling down. And you can get those results, and you literally are just going to have to play with the settings until you get it. Then you can mess around with the opacity. If you want to pull some of that extra black out of there, bring the opacity down. So now you're showing more of the metal and the dust. And then you can maybe blend that? Nah, there's really nothing there to blend. Now, I'll name this an anchor. I'm going to go to height. I'm on the height channel. I know the screen flipped. I'll drop my anchor. And this is going to be right eye rust. Enter. And now if I come down here, I've got right eye rust. And I will add some height to that. So now it looks up something a little raised up. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm just kind of blend that to the top. Yeah, you see how it's flipping from like top to bottom? It's just one of those things you got to get used to. You see how the height map has been moved up now because of the opacity change. So the opacity, you can look at that like down here as a value of strength and opacity, and then this one is under a mixing node. So if you wanted to switch this and you know a lot about the different add being a little bit more of the white, the multiply adding a little bit more of the dark value, just makes me think of value contrast. And you can kind of play around with these different settings and see if you can get something even better. I want to switch to overlay and see how this works, because it works good in the regular vanilla Blender shader. And I'll bring the opacity up here. It literally just made the transfer from top to bottom kind of opposite. Kind of raises it up a little bit. It looks good though. That's the effect I wanted. Now let's go for the whites of the eyes, which are currently yellow. So I'll add a new pick shader, come down here, and we literally could add wood, concrete, you know, fabric materials. You can add PVC, plastic, grainy stuff, diamond, bone, artificial leather, carbon fiber. That's a pretty cool one, and it's kind of hard to get that one right unless you go into box and then you're used to scaling and blending. Maybe. And no, I don't want to blend this one, but I could scale it up to bring it down a little bit. And now the blend works. See how I blended all that? The seams were there. But once again, the 50% blend works very well. Kind of sort of affects the other areas a little bit too. Maybe it's just the lighting. I think it's just how the lighting goes. So we can leave that as a carbon fiber. We could drop a layer on top of that. And let me delete that actually and go back to base. You got to be on base. Add your layer, unless you're going to add a standard layer, like a little color layer like you would do in Substance Paint or something like that. But you don't have to do that here. You can do it, but you don't have to have a base layer, because that's how Philogix PBR Painter Pro works. It is just good. So now I want to come over and add something else. I was going to do some camouflage. You could put gradients, brick textures, Veronis, and it's all a matter of blending those in, but I think I will just do some falling dust and we'll see how this looks. Hey, look at that, it's right where I wanted it to. So that's why we do the ID maps. And now we can kind of get that falling dust, and I could bring the detail in, kind of bleed it, if you will. And see, is AO going to do me any favors this time? Doesn't look like it. And I could bring the opacity up or down. I think I want to leave that one kind of to full. Try this little radius change for it here. You can make stuff look a little bit more grainy, like real dust. I do want that kind of broken up a little bit though. It's too strong. It's way too strong. So maybe if I bring my detail and everything to about here. I'm just going to have to bring down the overall opacity and get the effect I want. That's better. Much better. Now I can even bleed it down a little bit further if I wanted to. And just have a little bit in there. I'll bring that radius back around. Alright, so that looks really good. Now we got something for this ID map here. For the back of the eyes, we've got layers on them. We can add a dust layer to the base, and then we'll work on the goatee, which is still bright blue. So I'm going to grab the main body, add a layer. Let's see, what do we want to do? We could just add another dust layer. We'll keep it nice and simple for now. And this will be dust from, or I think the smart material would actually be pretty snappy. And that way we have it kind of displayed over the overall area of the mesh. I'll bring back the opacity so I can keep the color but bring in the extra layer. And now it's just a matter of working in your detail, and I can do it to a minimum. See, now that's pretty good. See, now I'm blending the dust here and the dust here, and that's actually looking pretty good. That I may not, I don't want it to be too much. I'm going to make it sure it's kind of subtle, but you can play with the curvature as well to increase that. and the surface grain to kind of fade it. So it looks like it's maybe even faded out. And I will bring the AO down and bring the curvature up, because I don't want it everywhere. And it's all about getting what you want. And I'm still on UV, so I'm going to switch to box for this layer. There we go, because I wanted it more up here as well. And now it's around the eyes a little too much. Ooh, I really like the grain. Bring the curvature back down to nicely blend all this dust. And see how this all matches now. You literally have 1, 2, 3 different ID maps, 4 different base textures. Well, 3 different base textures here. 1, 2, 3. And then all these different layers working together. And so once you start getting really good at this, you'll be able to produce anything you can think of. And so these, what would be simple exercises, are going to help you understand the layer system. So now I want to go up and grab that goatee. That would be my most fun thing to do. New pick shader. Let's go to base. And for the fun of it, what we can do is, would I make it wooden? I would actually make that wooden. I'll put a smart copper on there. I'm going to see if I can blend that copper in. I don't want it green, so you got to mess with the hue to kind of get it to that color-ish. Okay, so something like that. And that's going to be very squared up. I don't necessarily like that. We could do different stuff there with the ID map. Nope, not a fan. Okay, so let's see. Switch it to box and just give it one more chance before I destroy it and start over. Hey, it looks a little bit better. So this would be a matter of playing around with the hue and the saturation. I don't usually have to go this route. Trying to blend this in good. It's a goatee though, so it doesn't have to be perfect. A goatee can look like whatever you want, right? Alright, so I'm getting a little bit more control over this thing now. Still not exactly what I want. Alright, I think we can leave it at that. It matches pretty decent, but as far as aesthetics, it's not super pleasing. So that ID, I could redo that, maybe round it up a little bit, or just put a mustache. But anyways, the whole basic idea here is that you're stacking some layers and understanding the principles of the Philogix PBR Painter Pro. So I'm going to go ahead and add another layer. And for this one, I will add a paint layer. Now I'm going to come down, click paint. Make sure to get the same resolution I baked, which was 1024. I'll choose a color, which is down in the area that we're working with. Maybe, you know what? I'm actually going to stick with white. I'm going crazy here, and I'm going to go out on a limb. And I'm going to stick with white because I want to actually paint in white across. Now, for that line right there, and this works better on a single piece, but I could come in here and grab, just about anything I want. And maybe offer a little bit of blending. And kind of mask over this a little bit. And that's pretty neat. And then I can come back to the other layer and do some of the same stuff and kind of blend these two together and make them look a little bit more logical. And then let's see if I can add some of these splatters. It's adding black. I want white. There we go. This is what I was hoping for. And I'll just kind of paint some of these splatters. This is why I like version 2 so much, and I geek out about it. So I'll save that finish. Now just come up to the main body, add another layer, make sure I'm under the base layer, wait for it to catch up, click paint, wait for it to catch up. It's a little waiting game. If you got a slower PC, you're going to be waiting around because it's doing a lot. This is a big program, technically. So now I'll click paint, select my resolution. Let's see if it automatically switches me to white or black. Okay, so we're good. Now I've got my splatters selected, and I want to kind of start blending these areas in. And I'm not trying to get rid of the line. I'm trying to make it look a little bit more realistic. If I didn't want the line, I could redo the ID map and rebake it. Now see, I'm not painting on top of this other layer. Now let's see if I can kind of bring the black in just a little bit, maybe. Okay, the strength is up way too high, so let me Control Z back, bring it down to about 3. And I'm not trying to overwrite my stuff here, but I want to make it look like this kind of scattered paint. And time for a little bit of splatter. I'll bring the brush size down by hitting F, and I can add these little splatters in, maybe a little bigger. Okay, I'm on black again. Let me go back to white. Kind of blend these in with the strength even lower, maybe down to 2 or 1.8 or so, just to kind of blend it in. And go back to black. Actually, I think you can hit X to do that. Yeah, so X is the same thing, I believe, in Substance Painter. You just hit X and you can switch between black and white. As you're masking, it makes it super efficient. And just kind of bleed this goatee area together. And that is it. Click Finish. And from here, we could export. And so all this is pretty much where it should be. You want to grab the file path. And I'll go to Desktop, go to my render outputs, and I've actually got a PBR export. I'll just make this folder number 2. Don't hit enter again or you create a new folder. Just click accept, accept. I'll grab the base, the metallic, the roughness, emission, opacity, and the normal. And I'll click export. And now it's going to work on exporting everything, all the individual pieces. Alright, so that seems good. I didn't mention it, but you can change this from PNG to JPEG. Doesn't really carry the information over with it. OpenEXR will carry the most information and would be better if you were animating somehow, but PNG is fine. And the TIFF and JPEGs would be like for sending it in social media. The OpenEXR would be more for like a Blender reading. And then PNG carries the most information, and it will be not only shareable, but it will look good if you go to put these back on. And I mean back on your model. Like if you wanted to go ahead and export this to Substance Painter anyways, you could still do it. Even though, you know, I mean, we're just scratching the surface here of capabilities, but you could still do it. Now if I pull up those files under my render output, my PBR export in folder number 2, you can see what I've got. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.